welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching your financial coach. I am Hiral Dadia. With the kind of uncertainties we've seen over the last 18 to 24 months, everyone actually has understood the meaning and importance of financial planning. Today, we are here to discuss how important it is to understand and get tips of how we could actually retire rich. We have with us Mr. Ashish Samaya, CEO at White Oak Capital, joining in. Welcome to the show, Ashish, and a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Ashish, my first question coming to you is I think, especially in a country like India, people never really thought of financial planning as a tool. Everyone really wanted to live in the present, not really think too much about the future. However, slowly, steadily, with generations, the trend has started to change, and people now want to save for the future, now want to have a quality life in terms of where post retirement goes as well. According to you, how important is financial planning in today's day and age?
I think it is absolutely unavoidable. I think you can you. I don't think you can really plan for yourself, for your family, for your future generations, and I don't think you can provide for any of this unless and until you have the maturity to plan your finances. So I would say it's a life skill. I don't think one can really sustain. For example, we all understand that if our medical health is out of shape, then we should visit a doctor, medical practitioner. But if our financial health is out of shape, then who do we actually consult? I think that awareness seems to be a little low, right? So it's absolutely essential. I mean, it's a life skill. There's no there's no way one can go forward without it.
Right. As you mentioned, a very important point that the awareness with regards to where financial planning is really low. What's happening is in this day and age, clearly people want to do financial planning. So,
Mhm.
one is either they try doing it themselves,
Yeah.
and somewhere when they fail or they're not able to succeed, that's when they give up saying that, okay, this is not my cup of tea. I will take it as and when it comes. And secondly, the awareness about financial planners is something which is missing in the country. What would you recommend to actually inculcate that habit of going to a financial planner to promote financial planning? How would you look at it?
Yeah, see, exactly. That's what I meant to say. That like when our physical health is suffering, we are very clear that we should go to a doctor. But
Correct.
I don't understand what is it about financial health where people think that self medication is perfectly fine. I don't think just the way for physical health, self medication is not fine. The same way for financial health, one needs to understand that self medication is not fine, right? And there are two examples that I can share. Like most of us, like at least I watch a lot of Bollywood, and from Bollywood, I try to draw a lot of parallels with financial markets. If you've seen that movie Munna by MBBS, then Boman Irani actually in the class he says that I may be the best surgeon in the world, but if I am operating on my own daughter, then my hands will start shaking. Now
Correct.
that applies to managing money also. When you deal with professionals, it's their job in life to manage other people's money. Of course, there are good professionals, effective professionals, and there are not so good and not so effective professionals, which is true of every profession, be
Absolutely.
it be lawyers, doctors, architects, wherever. But the point is that at least if it's a professional, you expect them not to be emotionally involved. And money is something which we all know. People do get emotionally involved, they do get carried away. They extrapolate their recent experiences into the future. Like anybody who started investing in 2020 thinks that they are the best fund manager themselves. And anybody who started investing in 2018 think that the stock market is just not for me. Both of these are extreme perceptions. It's not as difficult as it appeared if you started in 2018, and
Correct.
it's not as easy as it appears if you started in 2020. So I think getting the help of a professional advisor is an absolute must, because this is not an area where you should self-medicate. There are
Right.
emotional biases, there are lack of technical understanding, there are many mental biases that we have. when it comes to managing money. And clearly, it's a professional job.
Right. And Ashish, with this, I mean, a lot of people start planning at a very late age. However, a start is always a good start, I think. However, if someone has to hear you today, what according to you is the best age to start financial planning, to plan for your future, and to plan for your retirement?
So it's very good that you brought up something about retirement here. And I would like to clarify first thing that retirement planning is not to be done by retirees.
Absolutely.
Retirement planning is to be done by everybody. And I find that a lot of people start thinking about retirement planning after they turn 50.
Right.
Whereas in reality, it is something the earlier done, the better. So I don't think that there is any right time. I mean, the best time was yesterday. And if you haven't done it yesterday, then start right now. But yes, people who are youngsters, and I presume that a lot of your crowd, a lot of your audience, our listeners are youngsters. And I think the day you get your first check, and if you are a smart kid, then whatever you save even from your pocket money, I think that's the time when you should actually be starting. I think there's a social ethos. When I was a kid, for example, in my generation, I was taught that thinking too much about money, talking too much about money is not a healthy practice. It means that you are money minded, or
Right.
it means that you are very shallow kind of person. So when we were kids, we were actually taught not to think about money. I think that was wrong. That was wrong teaching, wrong preaching, probably. Eventually, when you grow older, you realize that everything needs money. I mean, it's not that money can buy happiness, but like some wise person said, if you have to cry, might as well cry in the backseat of a Merc, right? So there's no wrong time to start. The earliest that you can start is better.
Right. And Ashish, I agree with you that, it's always been in the back of our minds that when you think a lot about money, people call you money minded. But I've seen this clear difference, especially in Indians, between the business community as well as the service community. Children who've been born and brought up from a service community, they've always learned how to budget well. They've learned how to, plan with regards to spends, etc. Whereas when children have come from a business community, that's something which is missing. Anything that you would have your thoughts on the same?
So look, I think that if you take India as if you take our history, then basically we have been a low income country, and I think most of us are born amidst deficiencies. Deficiency meaning deficit. There is a capital deficit kind of mindset because money was never abundant. So from that perspective, we all have seen our parents, working very hard or struggling to meet, make ends meet. So from that perspective, yes, given that, for most of us, the background has been capital deficit. So, money has to be spent or used very judiciously, has been a basic upbringing to the extent that some of us might be overly conservative at times. On the other hand, yes, I do agree that a lot of people who have been from business backgrounds, I don't. It's not that they lack savviness. It's just that somebody else has been planning or providing for them, and maybe they may not have had too many first-hand experiences in terms of experiencing deficit or experiencing the need to plan. So for youngsters, I would just say that you start thinking of how you will manage your finances, how you will run your family when ultimately the responsibility comes on you. Because, for example, I have had a lot of friends who have been well provided for in their younger days, but then eventually at some point in time, the elders in the family are no longer there, and God forbid, sometimes at a young age, a responsibility falls on someone. So I think it's always better to be acclimatized and put yourself into the situations and plan for it much in advance. I think that would prepare you better.
Right. And Ashish, there's no thumb rule as to how much can you save.
Mhm.
However, for example, X amount is what I get. What percentage should be the most minimalistic that I should try and save for the future?
See, three or four things I would tell you. Like, one is that there is, needless to say, like you started by asking, there is no thumb rule because everybody has different level of
Mm,
incomes. Everybody has different level of responsibilities, different sizes of families, different number of dependent people. Also, everybody has different lifestyle, rental rents to be paid and all those kinds of things. So while there has to be a tailor-made answer for every individual, I would say the more that you can save is better. But two, three things I can tell you. One is, while generally I am not an advocate for taking loans, I do feel that buying a house early, a lot of people actually say that buy your house much later. I am not in that camp, because if you buy your house early, that's forced saving, number one. Number two is that if you buy your house early, then, later in life, as you grow, your ability to pay EMIs only goes up, right? And at the same time, you got a foot into the door as far as real estate is concerned.
Mm.
Because while last few years nothing happened in real estate, in reality, real estate is quite an inflationary asset class. It actually balloons over a period of time. So one is that start early. Second is build your house early if you can afford to do it, because that is forced saving. Automatically, it answers some of your question. Because
Mm.
if you bought a house and if you're paying EMIs, you'll automatically save. You'll be more responsible. Whenever you get some bonus or additional cash flow or additional windfall, you're most likely to either invest that money, or you are, because you have a liability, your tendency to invest will be more, or you might even repay part of your loan. So no thumb rule, but I would say that, be very, very judicious. Nowadays, people spend 2-3 thousand bucks on a weekend dinner. I think a mutual fund SIP starts with $100.
Correct.
So there's no amount which can be said to be a small amount. I think every rupee is important. But let's put it this way, that if an average, let's say if a youngster earns a 75,000 rupees to a lakh rupees in a month, for example, a lot of the college pass outs and all, let's say you earn 75,000 a month, you're still living with your parents, then I think nothing stops you from saving at least half the money. Let's put that as a generalization, because,
Mm. Mm.
otherwise, I think for everything there has to be a person specific response.
Right. And overall, with regards to where retirement goes, I mean, again, it's a subjective question, but how much money do you need to retire in India to lead a comfortable life? And who do you think can be called rich at retirement?
So put it this way, it's not easy. Again, person specific question, because depends on, even after you retire, do you have any dependents? Are your kids self sufficient? Are you still paying for your kids? Do you have your own house, or are you still on a rental premises? Most importantly, what's your standard of living? So everything has to have customized answer. But on your question, I'll try to make a generalization again.
Mm.
Let's say that you live in a metro city, and let's say you are retiring now. Let's take an example that your cost per month, your basic sustenance, you have a car, you may have a servant, you may have, some basic expenses, and, some travel here and there. And let's say your expense is 1 lakh a month. So you need 12 lakhs a year, right? Sometimes there could be some urgencies or some out of the ordinary expenses. Let's say you need 15 lakhs a year. Now, what can give you 15 lakh rupees income in a year without taking too much risk? I think you need at least 2 crore rupees, because 2 crores will give you at least, 12 to 15 lakh rupees a year with very, very high amount of safety. Because on 2 crores, if I'm counting 15 lakhs, so let's say I'm counting at a rate of 7% kind of number. So if you put money in fixed deposits, and if you put even 20% of your money into equities, that would give you more like 7.5% as a combination of both. And then, of course, you can buy annuities and you can buy insurance. But I think that if you want to be safe and not expose yourself too much, then you should not be aiming for more than 7-8%, especially now that interest rates are much lower. So 2 crores for a person retiring in a metro city with 1 lakh odd as the expense. And I would assume that if you are doing a judicious job, then the 2 crore over a period of time should appreciate also. It should not damage your capital, and you would still be able to extract 12 to 15 lakh rupees consistently.
Right. So, I mean, that's an interesting point that you've made. And with this, which is the most common way to create a retirement fund? And what should the asset allocation look like?
See, when you're starting, let's say on an average, whoever is listening to us, let's say on an average, they are 35. Okay, I mean, this is an example. If you're 35, means you're at least Nowadays retirement, by the way, happens early, and some people are forced into retirement, because jobs get scrapped, or some redundancies come up, or the technology changes, or the way of operating changes, etc. But let's still put it that if you're 35 and you're retiring at the end of 20 years, say by 55, right? And in today's terms, you need 2 crores. So 20 years hence, what will you be actually requiring? I think it would be more like 12 to 15 crores, right? So today, if I tell an average person that you need 2 crores for retirement, they might think it's a big amount. The same way, I think the equivalent of 2 crores after 20 years, I think it will be, I mean, I'm not sitting on Excel and calculating, but maybe 12 to 15 crore kind of number might be needed. So in 20-year later kind of terminology, or in 20-year later kind of value of money, if you have to end up with 12 to 15 crores and you are right now 35, then you need to reverse calculate that if I make a 100% equity portfolio, it compounds at a rate of 10 to 12%. So in 20 years, all this is very easy in Excel. In 20
Correct.
years, if you have to reach 12 crores and the IRR is say 10%, then how much do you need to put every month right now? That's not a very, very difficult calculation. But I think, that is something that someone needs to really be mindful about. And I think that's how, you need to start saving right at the onset. The earlier you do it, better. I have given an example of somebody who's say probably 35, but if you are 25, then just think of the power, because from 35, I have counted 20 years. But you know the way compounding works. If you start at 25, the amount will be fantastic. So starting early is ideal.
Right. And very lastly, Ashish, all these years, at least in terms of the older generations, they always thought of FDs or post office deposits, savings accounts as means of saving, money for their future. Now that we've evolved, you have mutual funds that have come into play. Uh, Stock markets, again, somewhere are related to savings as well. Real estate comes in as a commodity. Cryptocurrency has become another fad which is coming right now, at least for the younger generations. So again, as asset classes, which one would you advise that one should consider from a retirement perspective?
See, I think that is easy to answer, because I think equity is something which is, I think a lot of people don't realize that equity is something which is omnipresent, right? Like, for example, nowadays, blockchain technology. See, I'm not a fan of, I can say that I'm not a technologically very savvy person, but I read and try to make up for my wherever I have gaps in knowledge. So with that disclaimer, I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrencies, but I'm definitely reasonably certain that blockchain technology as a concept itself will do very, very well. In fact, I personally find that stuff related to cryptocurrency and these NFTs is actually a distraction. Personally, if you ask me, it is distracting people from actually understanding the ramifications of blockchain technology, which is actually a far more forceful or far more powerful concept in terms of disrupting how we actually function. So the point I was trying to make is that equity is omnipresent. If you are very, very enamored by the future of blockchain technology, then you can buy equity of companies which are engaged in that space. If you think that real estate is a fantastic asset class, then nothing stops you from either buying REITs or even the shares of real estate developers. So one is that if your goal is to go 20, 25 years down the line, then I would personally find that if you're planning 20, 25 years down the line, I personally would say that owning a piece of land or owning a house or owning a Bitcoin is a very dangerous strategy, because in 20, 25 years, some of that might get seriously challenged or might go even obsolete. But on the other hand, if you're owning the equities of the relevant businesses, you can buy and sell those equities, and you can reorient your portfolio either yourself or with expert help. But I would say that 20, 25 year kind of time frame equity is a no-brainer, because equity is a concept. It's not a stock. Owning a part of a business is a concept. You may be enamored by any business and nothing stops you through equities to participate in that business. So from that perspective, I think equity is the most powerful concept. I would put it that way.
Right. Absolutely, Ashish. Equity, one of the most powerful concepts that one should look at. And the most important takeaway that we need to see is that there is no stigma to go to a financial planner. And that's something which is really important in today's day and age, to go to a financial planner, plan for your future, plan for your retirement. Because right now, the kind of uncertainties that we've been living in, that's something which is really crucial. Thank you, Ashish, so much for joining us on the show. A pleasure to get insights from you. Thank you. Stay safe and speak to you soon again.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.